What's up, everybody? I hope you're doing well. Today we're going to talk about productivity because honestly, it's what I feel like talking about. It's been on my mind lately. Today's episode is going to be a bit off the cuff, just sort of sharing my thoughts on this topic. Now, don't mistake that to mean that I somehow came up with these ideas myself. That's not true. There are plenty of articles and things out there on the topic of productivity. I just didn't sit down and do that research before hitting the record button today. As I look up information about productivity, what does healthy productivity look like online? Generally speaking, overall, there tends to be two camps that live at like very different extremes. There's the hustle culture, put your head down and find ways to optimize your time so you can get the most stuff done camp. And then there's the anti-productivity camp where there's an endorsement of slowing down, taking care of yourself. Back when I started Private Practice Skills, it was kind of in like peak hustle culture phase, like try to optimize each hour, each minute of your day to get the most amount of work done. So I think there was a natural backlash against that where the pendulum swung the other way because it's pretty apparent pretty quickly how harmful hustle culture or toxic productivity can be. And so now there's a lot more anti-productivity information out there where people are saying, slow down, don't focus on being productive and all of that. But then it raises the question of like, if you're not focusing on being productive, then like, are you getting stuff done? And where's that balance? So even though this video is definitely unscripted, I do loosely want to break it down into three parts. First, I want to talk a little bit about the hustle culture mindset. Then I want to talk a little bit about the anti-productivity movement, and then focus a little bit on like, what does healthy productivity look like, in my opinion. So first, let's talk about hustle culture. In my mind, hustle culture embodies this idea of like, you have some big goal in mind that's important enough to you that it's worth just like focusing all of your energy or nearly all of your energy on this thing that is super important to you. And I'd say I definitely took this hustle approach when I started Private Practice Skills. I had my regular full-time job seeing therapy clients, and during my lunch breaks after work, I would stay up till 9 p.m., sometimes midnight, sometimes 1 a.m., working on whatever I was working on to get this business off the ground. With that said, I was still exercising, I was still tending to my relationships. Looking back at that time, I still feel really proud of myself. I feel like what I did at that time and how I spent my time was overall healthy and aligned with my goals. So on the flip side, let's talk a little bit about anti-productivity or, anti-hustle culture, whatever you want to call it, which in my mind focuses more on self-care, going at a pace that feels reasonable, and productivity is not the end-all be-all defining characteristic of what makes our day and our lives worth living. Now, I've noticed for myself in the last few years or so, I really have kind of embraced this movement away from hustle culture in my own approach, both to my therapy practice and this online business. Some of that comes from a very privileged position of being able to still pay my bills and then some by working part-time. Let's just stop and be grateful for that, because how many people can say that truly? And with that said, I know so many folks in the hustle culture world will definitely make enough money to pay their bills and then some, and then just keep going in that hustle mindset and trying to multiply whatever it is that they've built, even though they arguably already have enough and they could slow down and still be just fine. Now, I can say beyond a shadow of a doubt that for me personally, moving away from hustle culture at the time that I did was a healthy move. Now, this is the juncture in my thought process where it started to feel confusing, because earlier I just mentioned, as I reflect back on that time when I was really hustling, I feel pretty proud of myself. I feel like I was healthy overall. And here I'm also saying that when I stepped away from hustle culture, that also felt healthy. So which one is it, Marie? Now, this is the part in my reflections where I started to go like, wait a minute, like what are we measuring when we measure productivity? I start to wonder when we ask this question of whether it's healthy to lean into hustle culture or more healthy to lean into an anti-productivity movement, if we're maybe asking the wrong question. For most people, if they're leaning into hustle culture, or for people who are leaning into an anti-productivity movement, they're defining productivity in the same way. Productivity as confined by getting work-related tasks done, meaning things that either pay your bills or you're hoping might pay your bills someday, or adult responsibility type tasks like running errands, doing your chores, stuff like paying your taxes. But now I've been starting to question, like, Is this actually how we want to define productivity? Is it how I want to define productivity? And ultimately, I think the answer to what it looks like to be productive is based on what is important to you right now and what your goals are. And so maybe that time that you spent, binge watching Netflix or lying on the beach and reading a book, or maybe that you didn't even read a book, was super productive because it aligns with a goal that you were trying to prioritize. And there might be other seasons of life where your goals look like being quote unquote productive based on kind of societal standards of what productivity looks like. Maybe you have a goal right now of starting a therapy practice, and so being productive looks like putting your head down and getting your marketing squared away so that you can start your business, and maybe that's what productivity looks like for you in that season. So personally, I would like to advocate for shifting how we define productivity, that rather than it being a kind of societally defined universal perspective of what's valued as far as how we spend our time, that it should be individualized and personalized. And even within the individual, it needs to be flexible to shift with the changing needs and values of our lives. I also believe, at least in a lot of spaces, that as we've defined productivity societally, we've glorified that kind of productivity and equated it with a sense of self-worth. So not only have we defined productivity within this kind of narrow boundary of working towards career goals or certain types of like being an adult, errands and chores, we've also equated somebody's sense of worth with their capacity to move towards those specific types of goals. It can start to become an internalized message where we believe in order to have a sense of worth and value, we need to be not only productive, but productive in this very narrow definition of what productivity looks like. I would argue if we have put our sense of self-worth in our ability to be productive, we are definitely setting ourselves up for some sort of mental health disaster, individually, but also as a society. And maybe some of those things might be avoided if we can acknowledge that our worth is consistent regardless of how much stuff we get done, and also that how much stuff we get done isn't just limited by whether we're getting stuff done with our career or adult tasks. That maybe sometimes getting nothing done is part of being productive because we need to rejuvenate. Something else that can go wrong when we lean into defining our worth from how productive we are in this kind of narrow definition of what productivity looks like is we can start adding things to our plate for the sake of being productive, even if they don't align with our end goals. We can very easily start to insert more tasks that may not help us at all, or may not help that particular end goal, just for the sake of feeling like I was so productive because that was career related. We create lists in our mind of stuff we should be doing instead of resting or playing or doing other things that are important to us. I think if I can sum up what I'm trying to say, it's that you can define productivity based on what matters most to you and what's most important to you in this moment. Sometimes it might actually align with your goals to lean in and hustle for a little bit. And there's going to be times where it aligns more with your goals to scale back and focus on other things that are more important to you. And I hope societally we can start to kind of encourage this shift together so it doesn't just look like we're either all in on the hustle mindset or like all in on the anti-productivity movement, and we can help support folks embrace more what is important to them and what it looks like to be productive in a healthy way for that individual and also as a society. Societally, I think we have a lot of room to grow as far as how we put really unhealthy expectations on people as far as what productivity looks like and how we define people's worth from how productive they are. And before we close, I'd like to thank TherapyNotes.com for sponsoring this video. TherapyNotes helps with all of your practice management needs, from scheduling to notes to billing. They have a HIPAA-secure telehealth platform and so much more. If you'd like to check out TherapyNotes, you can get 2 months to try it for free with no commitment just by clicking the link in the description of this video. Well, thanks for joining me in this unscripted, maybe a little bit ranty episode. I hope you found it supportive. Let me know in the comments if you have any tips as far as like what you find is a healthy balance when it comes to like productivity and all of that. And until next time, from one therapist to another, I wish you well.